Welcome to A Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach with Mark Gellard and Candy Reed, sponsored by the ERT 300. Okay, welcome to the latest edition of Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. It's been a huge week. We've had a remarkable tennis tournament at the 2024 Paris Olympics. Mark Gellard joining us as always, of course, and we've got a special guest, Vuk Brajovic, the international tennis analyst and commentator for a leading Serbian media. Vuk, it's wonderful to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for joining.
Good evening, Candy. Good evening, Mark. Wonderful to be with you.
Thanks for coming.
Well, there's a very special reason, Vuk, that we've got you on the podcast. I know you're on holiday and having a bit of a break from all this, but it's so important to get you on because, of course, of what Novak Djokovic has achieved in Paris. Hadn't won a tournament all year, and then he takes Olympic gold. The one medal, the one thing that was missing from his trophy cabinet. Tell us your thoughts first, please.
Well, the nation is overwhelmed, and Novak has portrayed this immense success, this immense victory as a national endeavor, as a joint endeavor. He actually thanked Serbia. He thanked all the Serbians that stood with him, gave him support throughout this strenuous period. And you very well remember that we were together at the AO in Melbourne commenting on the troubles that he's gone through, since the end of last year in Davis Cup in particular. But this is really the most triumphant way to return to the fore. And although he has not maximized on his promise to deliver at the remaining Grand Slams, meaning Wimbledon and Roland Garros for the time being, he has definitely brought in the gold, and he claims that this has been the most important victory of his career. However, we did hear Novak say this before, so I'm really looking forward to seeing him win the 25th Grand Slam and then hearing what he has to say. But at the time being, this has been portrayed by Novak Djokovic as a joint national endeavor, and he has done as much to emphasize it both in visual and audio terms, and you've seen and heard plenty of his statements as of late.
Yeah, I think it was the one missing sort of notch in it on the belt, really, and I'd written him off a long time ago, years ago, when he went through that sort of stage where he was struggling a bit, and he even talked about wanting to quit tennis for a while, and I just didn't think he'd get back to this level. And what he's achieved in the last 18 months, all the way back to Wimbledon last year and French last year, and it's incredible to me that he's still at the top of the game. And I know a few Serbian people, and he really is a hero. He is a national, and I'm sure he's got a future in politics or something like this when he's done.
Well, you're a well-informed man, Mark. Well, that's all I can say. However, he is staying away from politics for the time being, and what I passed on is my opinion on the atmosphere and the conditions that led to his recent successes is that he's managed to harmonize his family life around his tennis, which is very, very important. Since you mentioned the times in which he actually wanted to withdraw from tennis, this was 2015, 2016. Much of this was due to the fact that he was missing his family and missing the warmth of a domestic ambience, which has given him so much important support throughout the years. It's been pretty tough for Novak ever since he came to the international stage in 2004, due to various reasons. We would need a show to just showcase those, but it is what is very important now is that he's managed to have his family with him more frequently. The kids have sort of managed to sync their school program and errands around his tournament schedule. Jelena, his wife and the co-founder of the Novak Djokovic Foundation, is also frequently seen in the players' box. So this works really, really well for Novak. And although it is a fact that he is still without an official coach, he's managed to put together a team of trusted individuals, trusted professionals, which have been with him off and on for the past 10, 15 years, or even more when it comes to Miljan Amanovic, his physio. And that seems to be working well. At least it has been in the recent period. And although many have seen the loss from Alcaraz at Wimbledon as a major demise, I was not of that opinion. I think that he's really done 150% of what he could have achieved in such conditions at such a tournament and with such an adversary as Alcaraz, and that was a great springboard for what ensued in Paris. So I think that the preps ever since he played in that finals at Wimbledon have gone pretty well, albeit short. But he has also had a pretty good draw, and I think that in aggregate, this has been coming. So of course, all kudos to Alcaraz being a fantastic adversary, having a great tournament, playing the tennis of his life, winning both Roland Garros and Wimbledon. Not many people have achieved that. We all know this. But Novak, when he locks in and when he's on a mission, he's he can probably only beat himself. And fortunately for us and for the history of tennis, he has managed to pull it through this time.
Vuk, I was so surprised about how emotional Novak was after he won that. They shook hands. He had his wife, Yelena, as you said, and his little daughter, Tara, with "My Daddy's the Best," and Stefan, his little son, there as well, all cheering him on. But he was so emotional. Yes. He went down on the clay and he was literally shaking, wasn't he? That's how much he wanted it. Were you surprised by that?
No. If he managed to win at least one of the Grand Slams, perhaps the emotions would have been a bit less expressed. But this all sort of this was aggregated. It came together into this gold medal. All the frustrations, all the trials and tribulations of what he's endured during this year. And mind you, he's played some tournaments in which we would never expect him to take part in. Just to be on track in fulfilling this mission. It ended up. The final stretch of this mission ended up to be the gold medal in Paris, and for him, this was a revelation of sorts, which, knowing how emotional he is, did express in himself in such a way. So I wasn't surprised, and I'm also very proud of him being very noble in such a majestic victory. He's also had a lot of wonderful things to say about Carlos Alcaraz, but also a lot of other tennis players that have chipped in to congratulate him. And I think that he's really becoming a real statesman for the world of tennis and for sport itself.
Yeah, I've found it incredible watching him. I don't know if you remember last year in Cincinnati against Alcaraz, and it went from one of the worst performances I'd seen from him into one of the best. I mean, that first set was just awful. I don't know if you remember, and he was looking really bad.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden he turned it around, and just it's an interesting rivalry he has now with Carlos, because it seems to me quite different to the rivalries he had with Rafa and Roger. Just on and off the court. It's a different game style. It's a new style of player. And there's a different respect between them. I think Carlos kind of almost looks up to Novak and is humbled to beat him sometimes and to be around him. Whereas Roger and Rafa, it was a little different. It was a little more of their peers. So I thought that's been quite an interesting.
Exactly. Yes, it's a very noble rivalry. And I think that's a wonderful way to usher in the future of tennis, the era that will ensue after Novak, with Carlos and with Yannick as being in the forefront of such events and affairs in the world of the white sport. Yes, Carlos at times does seem to revere Novak, and actually in one of my pre-match comments, I said that perhaps somewhere in his mind, Carlos may have, a thought may pop up that, in case Novak proves to be too resilient during this match, Carlos may sort of subside and say, okay, I have many years in front of me, and this guy's just too fierce of an opponent today to match. But despite all this, despite all the workings of the subconscious, and we know how dynamic this area can be. I think that this rivalry is setting the stage, setting the pace for what's going to come in the future of tennis. And for this match in particular, the match in Cincinnati was very indicative. It was a great precursor because Novak showed that he can bounce back after losing Wimbledon, after such a painful loss, in 5 sets, having that huge opportunity in the fifth to break through, to come back in such a way to barely survive the first set physically, I mean, and then come back and win Cincinnati. I think he's proven then, and of course in Turin at the World Tour Finals, that he can match Carlos on any given day. And this was, yes, it turned out that yesterday was the day.
And Vuk, finally, if you don't mind, I don't want to keep you, but I'd love to know your thoughts on where Novak's future lies, because after he won the gold and completed the career Golden Slam in singles, joining Rafa and Agassi and Steffi and Serena as the only ones to have done that, he then spoke about playing in LA in 2028. And I was a bit shocked about that, given that he's 37 and he's just had knee surgery. So do you think he's going to do that? And how much longer do you think he can play at the top level?
Yes, I don't know if you managed to pick up what Goran Ivanišević said about it today, but he said, "Hey, this guy's crazy. You're never gonna. You're gonna have a very hard time getting him out of your system." I wouldn't count anything out when it comes to Novak. However, the injuries do remain an active issue, and every injury has its period of healing. This was a very fortunate turn of events now with the meniscus. However, it remains a question whether some other injury in the future may be healed so quickly and such a solid way. There may be compensations in different parts of the body when such injuries occur, and then they may prolong themselves in a way which will impede Novak to remain on the highest competitive level. And that's all about him. He wants to remain at the highest competitive level. He wants to be there to contend all the top titles, to not necessarily be the number one, but to achieve what he is set out to do. If it's one Grand Slam or a particular Grand Slam, or another Davis Cup title and things like that, he'll be defining his goals in the future. How long could this be for? I'm not really sure. I would give it another 2 years. Maybe LA is a bit too far-fetched, but let's see. We love to be positively surprised by Novak, and let it be.
Yeah, he's just a constant box of surprise. Vuk Brajovic, yes. Thank you very much. Vuk, how can people listening or watching get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Yes, I'm commenting on tennis at kurir.rs. So check it out. Google Translate works pretty well these days.
Perfect, Vuk. Thank you so much for your time, and we'd love to speak to you again. Enjoy your holiday.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Vuk. That's great. I think Mark's got internet issues, so no worries. But thank you so much. Sorry about all the trouble getting us on, but I think it was worth it in the long run.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Great meeting you, Mark.
Thanks, Vuk.
Good luck, guys.
Bye.
Love your show.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks to Vuk Brajovic, one of Serbia's best journalists. Very interesting to hear his insight. Mark, I don't know how much of the Olympics you were watching after Magda lost. She did have a really good win over Mira Andreeva. So let's chat about that first. How well did Magda play?
It's as close to a perfect match as I think she's ever played. I think it was, I mean, and against Mira, you have to be great. You have to be opportunistic, because if you don't take your chances, she's going to punish you. Yeah, I think obviously that confidence that we got from winning Prague the week before, and it's sort of that, as a tennis player, you always you want to get to that point of, it's not, I don't want to say automatic, because it's never automatic, but you're so focused on the present. I think confidence gives you a feeling of calmness as well. So when you go down a break, there's no panic. When you lose the first point, there's no panic. And there's a sort of an idea and a philosophy when you're teaching somebody that when they first learn something, they're unconsciously incompetent. So they don't know what they're doing. And they don't even understand how to do it. And eventually you go through the different phases to a point where you get to unconsciously competent. So you don't have to think about it, but you can perform it. And I think that when you're confident, like she is at the moment, that's how, the state of mind she's in. So it was a really, really great match, and it was her first win in the Olympics. It was tough because obviously Mira made the semi-finals of Roland Garros a few weeks ago, and after we beat her, we had to play the girl that made the finals. So it didn't get any easier the next round, and we definitely ran out of gas against Jasmine Paolini, who I think this morning, if I'm not mistaken, did they win the doubles title in the Olympics there? So her good summer,
that was
good year really continues.
Jasmine Paolini teaming up with Sara Errani, 37-year-old, to play Mira Andreeva and Diana Schneider in the women's doubles gold medal. I actually got to commentate on that. And Errani and Paolini came back from a set down. Errani now has completed the Golden Slam in doubles. So she's done what Novak's done in singles. She's won all 4 majors and the Olympic gold medal. Not bad for someone who doesn't have a particularly good serve.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, it shows you how the game of doubles has evolved. It's not any longer serve and volley and just being, but she's very competent at the net. She's very competent. She makes the court look small. She knows where to stand, and that's a lot of the doubles is about that. So it's an impressive run.
Yeah, so that was the women's doubles. Now in the mixed doubles bronze went to Gabi Dabrowski of Canada and Felix Auger Aliassime. And we've got a quick clip. This is from Freddie Fontang. I spoke to him a little bit earlier. He was on the move because Felix is playing Montreal, Magda and you are in Toronto right now. So that's the next tournament. The calendar never stops. But this is what Freddie Fontang had to say about Felix Auger Aliassime's achievements, bronze in the mixed doubles at the Olympics.
Yeah, hi Candy. Yeah, it was an amazing experience for Felix and his team, and of course, because to be able to play at the Olympics for his country, and to win a bronze medal in mixed double with Gabi was like amazing experience. And of course, Felix played well all the weeks in singles, and of course he lost against a very good Alcaraz, and also like Musetti was a tough battle. But Felix and Gabi were really proud to bring back a medal to their country. That's the most important. And it was like an amazing experience with the crowd, with all the Canadian fans on the courts. Yeah, it's really special. So now we have to turn the page and we have to focus right away on the Montreal tournament. Bye-bye.
Well, thanks for Freddie sending that in. Now, Felix Auger Aliassime also played Lorenzo Musetti for the bronze medal in the men's singles. He was beaten by the Italian Mark, just having an incredible year. And he was what Musetti was by his long-term coach, Simone Tartarini, who, Mark, has been coaching Lorenzo since he was 8. Can you believe that?
That's so unusual these days. When Magda played last week or the week before in Prague in the final, I thought Magda and we've been together about 7 years. I thought that was a good run. But Magda Frank's coach, they've now been together 15 years. But it sounds to me like Lorenzo Musetti's and his coach, that collaboration is, in tennis, because it's an individual sport, it's not a team sport, you almost become family. And I think you know, the value of someone knowing you and how to make you respond in certain situations is invaluable as a coach. And obviously they have a great thing going right now because he's just been playing great tennis this year.
And Simone has actually said that loads of times, that he treats Lorenzo as his third son. And they often room together if they're in hotels traveling. Probably they don't have to now because there's an awful lot more money involved. There's also an Olympic bronze medal, which turned out to be Italy's first. And this is what Simone Tartarini had to say earlier when I spoke to him. He was on the way back to Italy where they're going for a hero's welcome, there's no doubt. But it was very, very emotional.
Hi, Candy. Before the match point, I think it's a dream. It's impossible. I watched the people inside the Châtelet scream Lorenzo, Lorenzo. It's impossible. I remember when Lorenzo started with me in my small club, and I was very happy. And then when Lorenzo won the match, I cry. I cry for the emotion. And after the match, we go together in Casa Italia for to do party together with other people, with Italian president and other player, with Sara also and Yasmin. Ciao, ciao.
Okay, so that was Simone Tartarini. Our thanks very much to him. They'll be playing a couple of tournaments, and then, of course, the US Open, the fourth and final major of the year, is upon us. Now, Mark, before we talk about Toronto and your exploits in the next couple of weeks, we do have a listener question. This is from Pat, and he asks about the tactics and the strategy. Let's have a listen to Pat's question first, and then we'll have a think about the answer.
Hi, Mark and Candy. Really enjoying the podcast. A question to you, Mark, about tactics. And where do you see tactics sitting in a player's brain during the point? Because we hear a lot about the importance of staying present. And so I want to hear, how you think tactics, do they sit in that working memory and come out at the right time? And so on that, how many tactics would you typically give Magda before a match? Do you want her to regularly review those tactics at the change of ends, perhaps, or between points? And between points, how much time would you like her sort of reviewing tactics versus having her attention on a neutral present moment target, like a breath or the strings, something like that? So interested to see your thoughts on this topic. Keep up the great work.
So thanks you very much to our question from Pat. And let's go over that, Mark. He's asking about the tactics and Magda staying present. How many tips are you giving her, and how often is she listening to you?
Yeah, it's a great question from Pat. We appreciate those questions because they're interesting ones. I think that every coach will give you a different answer. I think that's the first thing, and I think it will depend on the player you're working with. So that's the two big factors. For me, one of the things that we've evolved from a little bit is in the last year, working with Shreyas at SpinSight, who we've talked about before with the analytics. He's done a really good job of having us use statistics in a way that focuses the game more about us rather than in the past where we've maybe said, she's expect her to do X, Y, and Z. It's now more that we've got to a position where we know our best serve in the deuce court. We know our best serve in the ad court. We know our weakest shot on the baseline, our best shot on the baseline. So we obviously know that information. As a coach, I have to take that information and then organize practice sessions to deal with each of them, whether it's improving a weakness or strengthening a strength. But I think that during matches, our pre-match routines will be, or discussions with Magda and I and Ian will be more based on what we want to do and what we do well, rather than at the moment focusing so much on the opponent's tendencies. There may be, say, one maximum of two things. On a big point, this girl tends to like her serve. But the issue that we found, her first serve, for example, is going to go down the tee a lot. Some players love that. When I worked with Shelby Rogers, she was very analytical. She was very smart, tennis brain on the court. She understood that if I told her at 30 all they were probably going to serve down the tee, and they served wide, she understood but that was 80% of the time. So the majority of the time she went tee, but that still meant that 2 times out of 10 she was going to go wide, and she would just accept that, and she understood that, which was a really nice thing to have as a coach, because she could understand that. Whereas Magda, if I tell her that she's going to serve down the tee at 30 all most of the time and she serves wide, not a good situation. And Magda would rather have she figures those things out herself as she goes, and a lot of it, again, is not so much what me and Ian think or want her to do, it's about what she feels. So we just given her now, I'm going the long way around to this answer, but our focus is tending to be now more on us and knowing, okay, for example, at 30 or what kind of point do we want to play here? If we have 15-40 returning, what kind of point do we want to play? Are we going to play an aggressive point? Are we going to want to make sure we put that return in play and make them hit a winner? What are we wanting? It's knowing what we want to do, because we can't account for the other player.
Really interesting. So I suppose if Pat's a player out there, worry more about you than your opponent. You can't control them anyway. You can only control what you do. So that's really good advice. Now, another question I've had actually quite a few times, Mark. We're now sponsored by the ERT 300, which is this dynamic tension handy device. And a lot of people have been coming to me and asking me a little bit more about it. So we've asked the head of the Wimbledon stringing department, Paul Skipp, who I know is with you in Toronto. He's huge experience, just to give us some idea about why players use it, what exactly it is. And this is Paul kindly sending this in.
Hi, my name is Paul Skipp. I'm currently the head string at Wimbledon, and I'm here to talk about dynamic tension. Basically, there are 3 types of tension we deal with as stringers: actual tension, reference tension, and dynamic tension. The difference is, reference tension is what you'd ask your stringer for, so £55. Actual tension is the tension you actually get on the strings once the job is done. Basically, it'll always be lower than the reference tension because of the way the machine works. There will always be a little bit of tension loss. And then we have dynamic tension. That is basically the string bed stiffness, and the easiest way to explain that is if I string 2 different types of string, so a polyester and a multi-filament, at the same tension, then they will give different results based on their construction. And what we can do is we can use this device here, which is an ERT 300, to check that dynamic tension. Now, players are interested in this because they like to have consistency wherever they go in the world. And what they do is they will use this device to check the dynamic tension of the strings. So in one tournament, they may be asking for £55 and getting a reading of, let's say, 38 DT, and in other places they may get 36. They like working towards specific DTs, and with that, if they need a specific DT, they may have to adjust their tension to get that, so they get that feeling off there. It's a great little tool. It helps us to check our consistency from string bed racket strung to racket strung, and also comparison for different strings. Players also like it as well because they're allowed to check and see about tension loss as well as the initial result coming directly off the machine. Hope that helps.
Okay, so that's Paul Skipp. Very much thanks to him. Just talking about the ERT 300, a very handy tool that you, Mark, use a lot with Magda, I know. Have you got it with you in Toronto this week, and what are your expectations?
You know what? It's a great question, and Eve, who works over at ERT, they do a great job making that device because there's really nobody else that has something similar. But on the way here from we actually went, funnily enough, we flew from Paris to Toronto to Florida, spent 2 days in Florida and then came back up to Toronto. And in that time, Air Canada has managed to have my bag lost for 5 days now, which has my lovely ERT in it. Fortunately, the stringing team and Paul are actually doing this event in Toronto. So they have plenty of ERTs on hand, which has helped us. And so actually we found that this week in Toronto, the machines are coming up a little bit looser. And also I think what's happened here in Toronto is the Wilson US Open balls tend to play lighter. They're not lighter, but since we've been on clay and using a Dunlop ball, which tends to be have a heavier feeling, a lot of the players are finding that their balls are flying a little bit further out or than usual, and the balls are really moving a lot here. The kicks are kicking, the slices are slicing. So we've actually had to go up a little bit in tension thanks to, again, the ERT showed us that the stringing machines here were a little bit loose. So we actually adjusted for this afternoon's practice. We practiced this morning with Sloan, and we found that we were just not quite up, just the control wasn't quite where we wanted. So we were able to get a racket strung, went up a kilo and a half for our practice this afternoon with Coco, and it was definitely better. So it's just invaluable, having that machine if that can win us one extra match a year, just because of that, it's huge. So yeah, they're a great product, and I'm waiting for Air Canada. If you're listening, get my bag back.
Right away. Is the dynamic tension then in Toronto still 30? Is that Magda's magic number?
Yes. So we normally string at 20 kilos, which will give us off the machine. When you take the racket right off the machine, it's fresh. It will come in out about a 32 or a 33 on a dynamic tension. You give that a few hours, and then it's up around 30, 31. But when we did it here in Toronto, the right off the machine was a 29. So right away, there's a big difference there. That's almost a 2 kilogram swing, which, is significant. So we try to, minimize all of the variables when we're changing. We're obviously a different continent, different balls, different surface, but you want to try and keep everything you can under control. And that was a big difference for us in this afternoon's practice with Coco, where we were a lot more solid.
And so have you gone up to, say, 21, 22 kilos instead of 20?
Yeah, so I think this morning, so after the 2020, we went up to 21, and then that was better with our practice today, but we discussed it on the way back today after that practice to the hotel, and we're going to go up again to 22. So that will give us what she's looking for. So we'll hopefully have one more day of practice tomorrow and then be playing on Tuesday.
I think this is the most geeky conversation we've ever had, but I've been enjoying it. And I have to stop you also. You've just practiced with Sloane Stephens and Coco Gauff in the same day. How was that?
Yeah, so it was this morning we had a practice set up, and I'm very conscious that Magda's very tired right now with the traveling, the time changes, and just the last couple of months in general. It's been very tough for all the players, but Magda especially is, and she's also not 21 anymore. So I let her sleep in a little bit, although we had a practice at 9 scheduled, but then it rained, so we got pushed back a bit. So it was a bit of a mad rush in the end because it stopped raining and they got the courts dry real quick. So we got about an hour and 15 this morning with Sloane. And then this afternoon we wanted a little bit longer, so Coco had asked us, and we jumped on with her, and so that was at 2 o'clock. We did 2 to 3, or 1 to 2, and then we got out of there and came back for this important podcast.
I've been on a few podcasts just in the last week, Mark, and we discussed on one of them the Coco Gauff forehand. What would you do? And I ask you because I commentated on a couple of her matches at the Olympics where she was in all 3 disciplines, singles, doubles and mixed. And I watched her play in the singles. And I don't know, I just think that if I'm her coach, I think something has to be done with that forehand. It's too unreliable.
I would not change the technique to start if I was working with her. Technique is such okay, for example, right now, I think that people have talked about, for example, her grip. Okay, her grip's quite far around. Changing a grip is a nightmare. If anyone coaching knows, you're looking at a long time, and so many things come with that. When you change a grip, you're changing a contact point, because the further west you go on a grip, the further in front your contact is. If you have an Eastern grip, for example, or a continental old school grip, you're going to have a much closer to the body contact. You're going to be in a closed position more often with your feet. A Western grip, you're going to have a contact point much more in front, but you're going to be in a much more open position with your feet. So you don't just change a grip, you change body position, contact points. It's not easy. It's like asking to change someone to change how they hold a pen. It's after 20 years of doing it, you have your way of writing. Does it, again, we've talked about it before, technique. 2 things for me. Is it repeatable, her technique, and does it get her injured? I don't think it's going to get her injured, and I think it's good enough. It's repeatable. She's 2 in the world maybe right now.
She is number 2 in the world. She's not doing badly at all.
No, so I would not change the technique. What I would be working on with her is sensations. I think that what players have in these situations is just it's a lack of feeling the ball with that side. So off her backhand, she has great feels. So I would really work on sensations with her, knowing how to hit heavy topspin, knowing how to make the ball go short, knowing how to make the ball go deep, hitting the inside of the ball, hitting the outside of the ball. She just needs to improve her feels on that side, not her technique. Her technique is okay. Medvedev, is another example. Rafa, when he first came, his forehand finishing over his shoulder. So I wouldn't change the technique, but I would work a lot on feels and sensations with her to begin and see how it goes from there. But no, I wouldn't be messing with the technique.
She may be making a phone call, Mark. Finally, let's talk quickly about Zhang Qinwen, the gold medal winner of the women's singles. She took out Iga Swiatek in that semi-final, which I think surprised the tennis world, and then went on to beat Donna Vekic in the final. How many more big ones now do you think Zhang can win? Has that sort of opened the doors?
Yeah, she's obviously a great player. We've played her a couple of times, and funnily enough, it's a matchup for whatever reason. We beat her last year in Miami. I think it was last year. And this year in Dubai or Doha. I'm not sure. She's a massive game, huge serve, great serve, and just big hitting off both sides. And that's why she tends to like the clay. She has a little bit more time to line up her shot. I think on the hard courts, it's a little bit, sometimes she can be rushed. Obviously, it was a bit of a surprise that she beat Iga, but as Iga or any of these top players are going to tell you, it's the pressure on them to win is every match. It's incredible. I mean, I definitely couldn't have taken that kind of expectation every match. So I think obviously she's a great player. I think Olympics is a different animal to a Grand Slam, which is over 2 weeks, which is a day off every other event. Every other match. Yes, I think she can win a Grand Slam, no question. Will she? I'm not sure. I think there's still. I still think she has a ways to go before she wins a slam, but I've been wrong before. So that I don't see it happening yet, and I mean that in the next 18 months. We'll see.
And why is that?
I think I think that her ability, I think that, for example, a 1 week event suits her better than a 2 week event, actually, because she's fit enough and young enough to handle the consistent back-to-back matches. But to maintain, tennis is a game of concentration, and to maintain that focus level and play at a high level over 2 weeks, you're doubling your workload. And I don't know if she's there yet mentally. That's my honest opinion. But she's, now that doesn't mean she can't do it, because, one thing we've talked with Magda when she made last year her run in Australia. Yeah, it was an outlier for her, but what she was able to do that period of time was to maintain her concentration and focus and stay calm. But that's what we're always fighting to find again, and that's the hardest thing to find. I just don't know if Qinwen's quite ready for that yet. I actually think she would do better in, these 1,000 level events that are maybe 1 week, which, for example, at Toronto right now, she's not here this week, but I think it's another 18 months before she does make that run. And I also wonder girls that have just done well in the Olympics, how they rebound physically after that. What Alcaraz did to me, we were discussing this yesterday with Magda, it's insane to go and win Wimbledon 3 weeks after you've won the French, and to then
for the first time,
and then right after winning Wimbledon to then go and win, or to be in the final of the Olympics. It's amazing. I don't know though what that does to the rest of the season. Not that I would care if we were in that position, right? You just win 2 tournaments, 2 Grand Slams and a silver medal. You don't care about the rest of the year. But for Qinwen, I don't know. But now I've said that she'll probably win the US Open. So I'm not sure.
I wouldn't bet against her, I have to say, winning a major in the next year.
Okay, well, we should.
We shall see.
Yeah, we'll have dinner on that one. We'll put
All right.
that dinner bet on that.
All right, we'll shake. Mark, thank you very much. Good luck in Toronto. I will be flying out tomorrow. Finished my last day in Paris at the Olympics today. So it's Toronto, Cincinnati, and New York for me. Same for you?
Toronto, Cincinnati, and New York.
Perfect. All right, we shall do it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't forget to have a look at ERT300.com. It's a handy little dynamic tension tool, a very exciting one, and we thank them for being our terrific sponsors. Anything to conclude, Mark, or is that it?
No, other than the haircut in Toronto wasn't great, and I'm not too happy with that, Candy.
Looks good to me.
No, thank you. Actually, on a last note, I just wanted to say I was very anti-Olympics before. I didn't think tennis should be in there, but the experience that I had there this past week and the way the Paris Olympic tournament ran the event, I thought was outstanding. I thought it was, for me, the best experience of my career. And I thought that the way that the tennis was done and everything, there's always complaints here and there about minor things, but kudos to Paris for running a great event.
What a lovely way to finish. I wholeheartedly agree. I think it was an absolutely brilliant event. And well done, Novak. Well done, Sara Errani. Golden Slam winners. Well, that would do it for Mark and I. Thank you so much for listening and watching Diary of a Professional Tennis Coach. Don't forget to keep sending your questions in and do like and subscribe. We're on YouTube. We're on all great podcast providers, and we will be back on in about a couple of weeks' time, as long as we can get all our technical and time, of course, to have time to do this. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. We're getting there. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.